on First at 9 this Friday, the 14th of June, 2024. Keep in mind, achieving program objective is the key priority for Sri Lanka despite elections, reminds the IMF. Old friends, Indian External Affairs Minister to visit Colombo soon. Vote on BRICS by the Cabinet-appointed subcommittee to the Minister of Foreign Affairs by the end of this month. Transformative thinking. Strategic thinking is the way forward for Sri Lanka, stresses the President.
The economic transformation bill requires the transformation of our thinking.
Dead ends. Colombo Archdiocese refuses to accept the Presidential Committee of Inquiry to probe actions of intelligence agencies. Calls on the government to establish a special prosecutor's office.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
This is Derana First at 9, live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singh joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now taking you straight to your top story this evening, the International Monetary Fund reminded Sri Lanka that achieving the objectives outlined under the Extended Fund Facility is mandatory for the island nation despite the elections to come out of the woods. Addressing a media briefing this morning, IMF's Senior Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Peter Brewer, who encouraged the authorities, added that the country must safeguard the hard-won gains achieved in restoring the economy so far. On Tuesday, the International Monetary Fund approved the second review of its Extended Fund Facility for Sri Lanka, thereby unlocking the third tranche of about $336 million. According to the global lender, it has so far disbursed around $1 billion to Sri Lanka under the Extended Fund Facility program.
Sri Lanka has made substantive progress towards advancing debt restructuring to restore debt sustainability. A swift finalization of the Memorandum of Understanding with the Official Creditor Committee and final agreement with the Export-Import Bank of China remain a priority. It is also important to complete the restructuring with external private creditors consistent with program targets. IMF staff will continue to assist the authorities with creditor coordination in line with the IMF's policies. We encourage the authorities to press ahead with structural reforms to unlock Sri Lanka's long-term growth potential. Steadfast implementation of the governance reforms would support the authorities' broader reform agenda. Key priorities include, first, further trade liberalization to promote export and foreign direct investment. Second, labor reforms to upgrade skills and increase female labor force participation. And third, state-owned enterprise reforms to improve efficiency and transparency, to contain fiscal risks and promote a level playing field for the private sector.
The IMF Executive Board has called for a swift finalization of the MOUs with official creditors and the agreements of the Exim Bank of China. Have the creditors given any reason for the delay in reaching these agreements?
We have been following the process very closely and have assessed that there is sufficient progress for the debt restructuring to move forward and to restore debt sustainability. So in fact, both agreements are very close. There is agreement on the substance of the financial and legal terms with both types of official creditors, and it is procedural issues that need to be resolved, and we anticipate that this will happen very soon.
When quizzed on the upcoming elections and the continuance of the reform program, IMF Senior Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Peter Brewer, had this to say.
First, it's important to note that it is, of course, up to the people of Sri Lanka to decide on the outcome in a democratic process. But let me reiterate from our perspective that achieving the program's objectives is the key priority to give Sri Lanka a chance to emerge from one of the worst crises in its history. There may be different proposals how to achieve that, and we're willing to listen to different views how these program objectives can be reached. These need to be realistic and achievable within the time frame of the program. Sri Lanka has made good progress in terms of getting the recovery going, but the country really isn't out of the woods yet, and it will be important to safeguard the hard-won gains. A key priority in the time ahead is to persevere with the reforms that will enable a stable and inclusive economic growth and avoid slipping into another crisis.
The IMF Senior Mission Chief for Sri Lanka, Peter Brewer, also shared some thoughts on the Public Finance Management Bill.
The Public Financial Management Law that has now been sent to Parliament, which will help to strengthen the fiscal framework and enhance fiscal responsibility, that should help to ensure that funds are being spent as intended. But
Less sugar, same great taste. From Melbourne.
Meanwhile, the United States welcomed the approval of Sri Lanka's second review under the Extended Fund Facility Program by the International Monetary Fund. In an ex-message, US Ambassador in Colombo, Julie Chung, said recognizing that reforms can be challenging, the United States continues to encourage Sri Lanka's leaders to stay committed, taking needed measures that ensure accountability, transparency and representative governance to foster investment and growth.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, President's Counsel Ali Sabri says Indian External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will be visiting Sri Lanka this month to review ongoing projects between the two countries ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Sri Lanka. Addressing a media briefing this afternoon, the Foreign Minister revealed that by the end of this month, he will receive the report of the cabinet-appointed subcommittee tasked with advising the government on the possibility of joining the BRICS alliance.
I can confirm that External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. Jaishankar, is expected to be in Colombo in one of these days. We will officially announce that once we finalize it. But in this month, he'll be in Colombo. He is coming here to review the ongoing partnerships in various areas: renewable energy, tourism, partnership between the central banks, partnership between the finance ministries, and also to prepare for an upcoming visit of Prime Minister Modi. Prime Minister Modi is expected in Sri Lanka in due course. Once we finalize the dates, we will once again announce that. So that high-level visit will take place in Sri Lanka. Official creditor agreements, we would say that we are expecting to sign at any moment, very soon. If that happens, Japan has told us they will not wait for the repayment to start the project. Whatever the project which have been suspended, they will start immediately. I'm hoping to visit Japan at the invitation of the Foreign Minister of Japan in first week of July. So we hope that OCC official confirmation and the MOU could be signed before that, so that we can finalize the resumption of those projects. I would see that a lot of momentum being built towards the BRICS. As far as we are concerned, we are closely monitoring it. Foreign Ministry had submitted a paper to the Cabinet. Cabinet has appointed a subcommittee to study the pros and cons of joining BRICS, and we are expecting that report to be available for us toward the end of this month. So based on that, I'll go back to the Cabinet, and depending on what Cabinet decides, we will decide whether to immediately apply to join or to wait and further observe it.
Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe says Sri Lanka's education infrastructure is at its third stage of development, marked by the use of knowledge in an open platform with free access given to all members of the general public. The President asserts that the Public Learn Education platform, launched for the benefit of the country's youth, will pave the way for transformative thinking, imperative for the implementation of the Economic Transformation Bill. Meanwhile, Chairman of the University Grants Commission, Professor Sampath Amaratunga, says there is no way forward for Sri Lanka's education system sans e-learning.
The Public Learn Education platform, developed for the benefit of the country's youth, was launched at the Chamber Hall of the Presidential Secretariat under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe yesterday. The educational platform, funded by the Sri Lankan diaspora in the UK, can be accessed through the website www.publiclearn.lk. The new educational platform is geared to transform Sri Lanka's learning landscape.
Even today, the system is on a strike, non-academic staff. 15,000 on roads. But last week, I have managed to upload the student handbook. People are now downloading. And tomorrow, 6 o'clock, we are going to open the portal for applicants. So internet is the buzzword. There is no other thing. So thank you very much, Excellency the President, giving high priority for this e-learning. Without this, there is no future.
We are living in a knowledge-intensive society. Then we should also join the race and certainly come out with the top players. That is not difficult for Sri Lanka. I think our education results are good, whatever be the faults of the education. Now this will help us to make better use of our education system. The economic transformation bill requires a transformation of our thinking, and this certainly is one of the instruments by which we can achieve it. We must also get used to the fact that there be more and more post-school learning opportunities without classrooms and without walls. And this is what we are doing. And even within classrooms, that we can also overcome our shortage of skilled, experienced teachers. So this is certainly an instrument which paves the way for a large number of Sri Lankans. Now we are at the third stage of learning, which is use of knowledge on an open platform, the digitalized education system. We are looking at digital economy. We are looking at using the latest knowledge, because Sri Lanka can only get ahead if we use our heads and we think. And certainly what we call reprogramming. I think this should be done in case of some of my colleagues in Parliament who certainly need it very much to understand what is a 21st century economy.
Drawing attention to the failure of the government and the Attorney General to implement the recommendations outlined in the Presidential Commission of Inquiry that probed the Easter Sunday attacks, spokesperson of the Colombo Archdiocese, Reverend Father Cyril Gamini, says that the Colombo Archdiocese rejects the Committee of Inquiry recently appointed by President Ranil Wickremesinghe to investigate the actions of the intelligence authorities in the lead-up to the Easter Sunday attacks. Addressing a media briefing today, the Colombo Archdiocese spokesperson called on the government and the President to pass laws in Parliament and establish a special prosecutor's office.
Recently, President Ranil Wickremesinghe appointed a committee of inquiry to investigate the actions taken by the State Intelligence Service, the Chief of National Intelligence and other relevant authorities in the lead up to the Easter Sunday attacks. The committee is particularly tasked with investigating the steps taken by the authorities, or the lack of thereof, after receiving prior intelligence pertaining to the bomb attacks on the 21st of April 2019. According to the President's office, this decision follows the findings of the final report of the Commission of Inquiry dated the 31st of January 2021, which highlighted that Indian intelligence agencies and other sources had provided advance warnings about the impending attacks. However, at a media briefing today, the executive move came under heavy criticism of the Colombo Archdiocese.
What
we have requested all this time is to implement the recommendations outlined in the report of the Presidential Commission of Inquiry that probed the Easter Sunday attacks. However, both the government and the Attorney General have failed to implement those recommendations. As a result, we do not accept this committee. Officials including Nilantha Jayawardena, Suresh Saleh and the Inspector General of Police will be questioned by this committee. When that is the case, how can an independent and just investigation be launched while these officials are still holding office? We suspect that this is an act to deceive the people, considering that presidential elections are around the corner. That is why we have requested the necessary laws to be passed in Parliament to establish a special prosecutor's office within 3 months. The President possesses the power to do so. If not, please do not waste people's time and money.
Former Health Minister Keheliya Ramukwella and 7 other suspects have been further remanded until the 28th of June for their alleged involvement in the import of substandard vials of human immunoglobulin. The relevant court order was issued by Maligakanda Magistrate Lochini Abevikrama when the relevant case was taken up for consideration before the Maligakanda Magistrates Court today. Meanwhile, the Attorney General's Department today informed the Supreme Court that the department will not appear on behalf of former Health Minister Keheliya Ramukwella and arrested NMRA officials in the matter concerning the purchase of medicines from 2 allegedly unregistered companies.
The legal matter pertaining to the procurement of substandard vaccines was once again taken up for consideration today before the Malika Kanda Magistrates Court. Presenting her submissions, Deputy Solicitor General Lakmini Girihagama stated that the Chief Executive Officer of the National Medicines Regulatory Authority at the time of the procurement of the substandard vaccines, also the 12th suspect of the case, Dr. Vijay Gunasekara, conducted an inspection of the warehouse in question 3 weeks prior to the procurement of the vaccines. She also disclosed that during the interrogations, Dr. Gunasekara revealed that he had been using 2 seals for official purposes. However, she also submitted in court that an internal investigation of the Health Ministry revealed that the former NMRA CEO had been using 12 official seals. Meanwhile, the defense counsel of the first suspect filed a request for bail in court. The first suspect, Sudat Janka Fernando's legal counsel claimed that his client, being a scientist, has been imprisoned for 7 months for developing a pharmaceutical drug. Counsel for the first suspect submitted to court that his client be granted bail on the grounds that the NMRA was fully aware that the pharmaceutical drug in question was being developed within Sri Lanka by the suspect. In response to the plea, Malika Kanda Magistrate Lochani Abe Vikrama held that for any suspect to be released on bail, adequate facts and evidence must be laid before the court despite the duration of the incarceration. Considering the gravity of the matter, she went on to state that such a decision must be made through careful evaluation of facts presented by both parties while maintaining transparency. Accordingly, Malika Kanda Magistrate Lochani Abe Vikrama ordered that former Health Minister Kehliya Rambukwala and 7 others be further remanded until the 28th of June.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa says that there is no way forward for Sri Lanka without the International Monetary Fund, while criticizing those groups which disregard the IMF program on the political stage. The opposition leader went on to assert that under an SJB-led government, the IMF agreement will be amended for the betterment of the people. He made those remarks at the 237th edition of the Sakwala program in Dulapitiya.
The 237th iteration of the Sakwala program was held at the Hunumulla Mahavidyalaya in Dulapitiya under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa.
Some groups claim that they can work without the IMF. Please don't fall for such nonsense. The world economy has been shaped by international financial regulations developed immediately after the Second World War. The IMF, the World Bank, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, also known as the GATT, and the World Trade Organization are all a part of that international infrastructure. It is ridiculous to suggest that we can proceed without the IMF. However, this IMF deal was negotiated by a government that is completely unaware of the ground reality. These agreements must be humane. The main focus of this agreement is not to protect the people, but to completely destroy them. We will definitely amend the IMF agreement if we are elected into office. It is imperative for us to have the support of the IMF. However, we must sign the right deal with the IMF. Parliamentarian of the Samak Jana Balawegaya, Nalin Bandara, stated that the leader of the SJB, Sajith Premadasa, will earn Sri Lankan history's highest voter margin at the upcoming presidential election. Meanwhile, Minister of Tourism Harin Fernando claimed that the upcoming presidential election will be held on the 5th of October and that President Ranil Wickremesinghe will secure an inevitable win. With that, let's take a look at some thoughts expressed in the political arena today.
මේ වැඩපිළිවෙල ඉදිරියට යන්න ඕනේ. ජනාධිපතිතුමා ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්න යන්නේ ස්වාධීන හෝ පොදු හෝ අපිට එවන වචනයක් පාවිච්චි කරන්න පුළුවන්. දේශපාලනය කරන්න නෙවෙයි එතුමා ඉදිරිපත් වෙන්නේ රටේ වැඩපිළිවෙල ඉදිරියට ගෙනියන්න. සජාතික පක්ෂයේ ප්‍රමුඛ සම්මානය ඉදිරි දක්වන්නේ කොයි කාලෙද? ඒක අපි ඉදිරියේදී කියන්න. ඒගොල්ලන්ට හරි කඳවුරක් නැහැ.
They lack a proper camp. It is ideal for them to contest under the symbol tent in the upcoming elections. Not only the highest voter percentage, but a victory with the highest voter margin too will be claimed by Sajith Premadasa in the next election. We expect that he will earn 3 million more votes than the second candidate and emerge victorious in the presidential election. It has been proven by research. A new situation has emerged now, similar to the previous presidential presidential election, Sajith Premadasa has started to jinx himself. If he continues to do that, he will drop from first place to second place and pave the way for President Ranil Wickremesinghe to claim the top. So Sajith Premadasa has to stay quiet without jinxing himself.
බුදුබණ සිහිපත් කරගෙන කටේ සංවරය ඇති කර ගැනීමයි.
විශ්වාස කරනවා ලංකාවේ මිනිස්සු බුද්ධිමත්ව තේරුම් ගනි කියලා ආයෙත් ගෑස් නැතුව පෝලිං වල ඉඳලා නරනවාද එහෙම නැත්නම් මේ රට මේ විදිහට ඉස්සරහට යන්න තව පොඩි කාලයක් මේ ජනපතිරට දෙනවද කියන තීරණය කරයි. දැන් ඉදිරියේදී මැතිවරණයට කොහොමද පුතුමාලා පස්සේ සූදානම් වෙන්නේ? මැතිවරණ තිබ්බම් බලන්නකො ඔක්තෝබර් 5 මැතිවරණේ තියෙනවා අනිවාර්යෙන් රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්තයා ජයග්‍රහණය කරනවා. ජයග්‍රහණය කරන හැටි කරලා පෙන්නන්න.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, as per the reports of the Department of Census and Statistics, Sri Lanka's year-on-year GDP growth rate for the first quarter of 2024 has been estimated at 5.3%. The department has released the estimated gross domestic product at current prices and at constant prices in the production approach and the other macroeconomic indicators for the first quarter of 2024. The GDP for the first quarter of 2024 at constant prices has increased up to 3,329,583,000,000 rupees from 3,161,963,000,000 rupees, which was recorded in the first quarter of 2023. Further, the agricultural, industrial and service activities expanded by 1.1%, 11.8% and 2.6% in the first quarter of 2024 respectively. Now, the Colombo Bourse closed in red today, pulled down by communication services and utility stocks. The Colombo Stock Exchange All-Share Price Index dropped 0.4% to settle at 12,310.83 points. The index lost 0.03% in the week. Harishchandra Mills and Diesel and Motor Engineering were top drags on the index, falling 9.1% and 4.2% respectively. Trading volume on the ASPI slumped to 44.8 million shares, down from 57.3 million shares in the previous session. Meanwhile, the S&P Sri Lanka 20 slipped 0.68%, ending at 3,645.29 points. The equity market's turnover fell to 1.28 billion rupees from 1.83 billion rupees in the previous session. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to turnover, while the material sector was the second highest contributor. Foreign investors were net sellers of floating stocks worth 219.2 million rupees, while domestic investors were net buyers purchasing shares worth 1.25 billion rupees. The Colombo Bourse will be closed on Monday, the 17th of June for a holiday, while trading will resume on the 18th of June. And now let's take a look at some corporate news in brief.
The Ceylon Chamber of Commerce congratulated and commended the government for securing a board-level agreement on the second review of Sri Lanka's extended fund facility with the International Monetary Fund. The chamber went on to urge the government to maintain the momentum of the current reform agenda to steer the economy towards lasting recovery and stable, inclusive growth. The CCC also said it is crucial to address persistent issues related to governance weaknesses and corruption vulnerabilities, adding that the IMF's governance diagnostic assessment aligns with the Chamber's call for reforms in such critical areas. Fonterra Brands Lanka commemorated World Environment Day by hosting an educational workshop focused on environmental awareness and soil conservation practices. Aligned with this year's theme of land restoration, desertification and drought resilience, the initiative aimed to empower the local community and future generations with the knowledge and skills needed to realize a more suitable future. In other corporate news, Jet Holdings PLC announced the grand opening of its cutting-edge binder plant in Horana. The new binder plant, valued at over 1.5 billion rupees, will complement Jet's Alkyd resin plant in Bangladesh, strengthening its cross-border manufacturing capabilities. Supported by Jet's premier R&D centre in Sri Lanka, the binder plant will enable the company to produce its own binders, essential for wood coatings and emulsion paint, aimed at optimizing production efficiency and enhance product quality, delivering greater value to customers.
Unfortunately, that's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.